Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, Kevin. How are you?
You're wondering where I am.
I
I
love it.
am I am driving back from Toronto, so I'm at the Pembroke rest stop on the New York State Thruway, I-90.
In front of a live
I'm,
audience?
well, sort of, but I don't. They may boo me. They may not applaud me. It's a little weird. Um, And I figured that I was going to originally go to a Starbucks or a Wegmans, and I'm on a stretch of highway where there is no Starbucks or Wegmans. So, but the rest stop seems to have pretty good Wi-Fi. So,
That's
hopefully
good.
we'll
All
hold
right.
up.
Love it.
But I had to do this today because I thought it was really important to talk, the two of us, about the FTC lawsuit against Amazon, which is getting a lot of attention, certainly in the media, also in social media. There's a lot of stuff out there. Um, but let's start with your first. I mean, I've had a chance to write about it a lot on Morning Newsbeat. What are your first impressions of the suit?
Well, I'm not surprised that it's happened because it's been in the works for so long. I do what I've seen about. I've not read the suit, but I've read a lot of the coverage of the suit. I've also read Amazon's rebuttals of the suit and in various social media postings and commentary about it. I think it's going to be a tough case. In my opinion, again, having been on the inside of Amazon, having worked with both first party, go to market, which is our own, and working with third party merchants on the platform, um, you know, I, I think it's expensive. E-commerce is expensive. Getting products through a fulfillment network to end customers are expensive, and um, Amazon has to set rules to to be able to support third party merchants in doing that. And there's a real cost to that. Now, as we dig in further, will we find out that Amazon is not played by the rules, that Amazon has used extra weight to exert policies and pressures and costs on manufacturers that are unfair, right? That were enforced because of Amazon's might or heft over other alternatives. That remains to be seen. But one thing I do know is it is expensive to get products to customers, and most traditional margin structure is eaten up when you
Right.
take a product that selling a product in a store versus selling a product in e-com, and that's got to be paid for.
Yeah.
So as we dig in and we determine kind of really where that ultimately lands, I think we'll learn more. But at its surface, I don't see how Amazon, by their practices, is unfairly driving up consumer prices. Is it driving up consumer prices? Most likely, because selling stuff online is more expensive than selling stuff through stores. So we've always felt that, ultimately maybe online has to cost a little bit more because, for the convenience and the cost to support that.
Yeah. I think that I mean I agree with all of that. It seems to me, though, that I mean, clearly the FTC, Lena Khan's FTC, is trying to, if not write new law, certainly what they're trying to do is interpret old law for within a 21st century context as opposed to in a 20th century context, which I think makes total sense. I mean, when the old FTC said that Staples and Office Depot couldn't merge because they would own the marketplace, it was like, well, have you ever looked at the marketplace?
Mhm.
There is a company called Amazon. There's a company called Walmart. Right. So that
100%.
made no sense. So I totally agree. I agree with the notion that the notion of competition has to be redefined for for this new
Today's
age.
era. Yeah, I agree.
I won't be surprised. Listen, I think every big company, when they get to a certain point, they throw their weight around, and the impulse is to throw it away around more than you can or more than you should until somebody stops you. I mean, I think that, there's no big company out there that doesn't do that. So I won't be at all surprised to find out that they did it. on the other hand, I think to myself that, you know, if you and I are both vendors operating on Amazon's marketplace, and I'm willing to take on all the different services that you're not willing to take on, I'm more integrated into the system. It simply makes sense that that I would get better terms, or I would get I would my skids should be greased a little bit more than yours should, because I'm using more of the system. But by the way,
Well, yeah, I mean,
right?
and if you're using more of the system, you've optimized your being in that system. You've optimized your route to the consumer in the world of Amazon,
Right.
and you likely are creating the lowest cost to get that product to the customer. And and then Amazon presenting that to the customer in a competitive market is able to offer that price lower. Right. And if you are not taking advantage of those services, you either have to then try to match a similar price to that, like say we're competing with the same product, right? So then you're going through Amazon, I'm not going to sell anything if I don't match your price, right? And by the way, your price is also being matched against other retailers because Amazon wants to be competitive, fair. But I will struggle if I'm using my cost structure to get the product to a customer. I'm not going to be able to offer it for the price you're offering.
And I think
free market to me.
Now there's the other issue is not being a lawyer or an antitrust expert, right? But the notion that Amazon is insisting to its marketplace vendors that they cannot offer it cheaper someplace else. Again, I'm simply not sure, because I can imagine that Walmart has vendors and it says, we're going to drive the price so low here at Walmart that nobody else is going to have it cheaper, which is not exactly the same thing, but it's similar. And I don't understand. And that doesn't strike, that's good for customers, except the FTC is arguing that it's actually raising prices elsewhere. So if you're not shopping on Amazon on this thing that they're declaring to be a monopoly, then your price is going to definitely be higher. So I sort of get that argument. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and again, how the courts sort of assess the notion of competition.
Yeah, I mean, I get that argument. Ultimately, the merchant doesn't set the retail price, right? The platform and or the retailer will set the retail price. I'm sure there are marketplaces, right? Guana's a third-party merchant can set my retail. Amazon doesn't do that. Amazon's retails are all algorithmically driven, right? By other people on Amazon selling the same product, and then competitive prices out there of that product. And they're, Amazon sharper based on how important and whatever the volume of the prices. They're image items. I mean, retailers all have images, right? So, I don't know. It's hard for me to reconcile that the Amazon marketplace that kind of creates the ultimate transparency of the e-commerce retail price of that item, which may be painful on the manufacturer to offer that item through e-commerce. I have trouble seeing that causes prices elsewhere to be high, unless the argument is that, well, manufacturers then have to make the prices high or charge a higher cost of goods elsewhere to make up their to make up their own economics. But it's a market economy. It's a route to customer that's expensive. Manufacturers ultimately have to look back at their own manufacturing costs of producing items, right, to be able to produce items at a level at which they can achieve a margin. And I've always said, since running the Amazon business, that as more commerce transitions to online, right? So that means going through, either a delivery, a parcel delivery, a local delivery, or a store pickup model. All of those models have higher costs. So ultimately, there's going to need to be a balancing of the margin structure in there. You can't expect a retailer, a traditional retailer or an e-com retailer, to bear all the cost of this new go-to-market to the customer. And if they do, then they're gonna have to charge higher prices, which nobody's gonna want, or nobody's gonna like, or they're not gonna like, or they're not gonna be able to offer the item. you know, and then in those cases, the manufacturers are going to have to play in that space, probably are going to have to approach margin a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
I do,
ultimately going to shake out. I don't think there's
yeah,
any hard rules here.
yeah.
I think
And I do,
ultimately everybody's got to work on lowering the, you know, making it the whole value chain as efficient and effective as possible, and ultimately balancing margin in the right way.
right. I mean, I do think at some level though, I mean, it is Amazon who set these expectations, right? I mean, the great trucks say, you know, great products, low prices, choose two, right? So they're out there saying we have low prices. If the message is, but you know, that we really can't afford to give you the low prices,
So we're going to
it
jam it back on our suppliers.
it undermines their argument a little bit.
Yeah.
I also think the other thing that is really fascinating, and there have been stories in this. There was a story in the Atlantic that I know we both read. The notion that the customer user experience has degraded. That for a company that always said the customer is number one, everything's going to be done with the customer in mind. We're going to start there and work backwards. You know, I think it's a really legitimate argument to say that that's not the case anymore. It is in their search for ancillary revenue streams and to find ways to find the money to support the things that we're talking about. The user experience does not seem to be their priority, and we know people, you know, and it's not just people looking in from the outside. It's people who were at Amazon, right, who are on LinkedIn, who are saying, you know, this is not what it used to be. You know, when you and I were texting last night about this, I said to you, well, the problem thing is, I'm not sure that's the FTC's purview to fix that. Although I do think it's Jeff Bezos's purview to fix that. And I don't know. I used to joke about him coming back, and he's got other things going, but there's been a shift here. You know, I mean, as somebody who's been, you work there. I've been shopping on Amazon since 1996, 1997, early adopter. There feels like a shift, and it doesn't seem to me to be positive.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that it has degraded. You know, when I first read the Atlantic article, you know, just the way it was, like the first couple paragraphs were worded, I'm like, oh, you know, this writer has a bee in their bonnet. You know, it is, you know,
I think
something
the phrase you're looking for is buck up his ass, but that's okay.
To Amazon. So I kind of read the whole article like with that, you know, well, I get it, you know, get over it. If you know what you want on Amazon, it's not that hard to find it. But then I saw a LinkedIn post about it from somebody that I worked with very closely at Amazon that I respect tremendously. And then saw the additional comments that were added to that, and the incredible passion in that post that was, you know, and these are other contemporaries of mine from Amazon back in the day, all of whom in that forum on LinkedIn were no longer with Amazon. But it really did open my eyes to, you know, how different, because just, you know, hearing their comments on when we originally built that, right, and what, you know, what our goals were for delivering an experience to customers, right, and giving customers this great assortment with these great prices and this great convenience, and really helping them find what they want and making sure we had what they want, you know, and then building the experiences all about that. And then hearing, you know, their dismay over where the experience is now. And even some of them saying, yeah, I questioned my Prime membership. Some of them saying they got rid of their Prime membership. I mean, I was like, it was, to me, it was really eye-opening and very sad. And yeah, as I listened to their comments, I get it. I mean, it is a very different experience now. You know, when we were talking before we went live, you were talking about your headphones. And if you wanted to buy your headphones on Amazon, you could literally put in, you know,
Beats wired earpods.
Beats, yeah, wired earbuds. Yeah.
And it might take 15 things to find it.
Yeah,
and
it would
crazy.
be in there, but you'd have, you know, all kinds of obscure brands that have names that you don't even know how to pronounce that are produced in China. You'd have other competing brands that are advertised. You'd have other competing brands that are on there that are advertised, and unless Beats was paying, you know, a bunch for advertising, you're gonna have to scroll down pretty far to find it. And you know, Amazon has a very large, lucrative, still fast-growing media business, advertising business, and you know, I think you're seeing the downside of that advertising is what you have to wade through as a customer. And that's really you know, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and listen, I mean, first of all great empires fall eventually. So, right. And I don't think we're talking about them falling, but but
Yeah.
this is an inflection point for them.
Yeah.
I also think this is this is not different than what most retailers, certainly in the food industry, have gone through, right? There's that moment where, and for the grocery industry, it happened decades ago, when companies figured out that they could make more money on the buy than on the sell, right? And so all of a sudden, you know, slotting allowances, failure fees, and promotional monies and stuff like that. I mean, our friend Glenn Turbeek was saying 25 years ago that almost all the profit in the supermarket industry was coming from that. It wasn't not what was being sold. And that's where Amazon finds itself right now.
It does.
It seems to me, whether you're talking about how and by the way, a lot of that had to do with how retailers were dealing with their vendors as opposed to, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do think at some level, Amazon has become, say it, just another retailer. And that is to me, that I'm probably more for CU because you were there building this thing in the beginning. That's sort of sad. I don't think it's irreparable, but it does seem to me that at some level, if they're not taking this stuff seriously, I mean, really seriously, and saying, okay, we have a problem and we've got to fix it, or we're going to just be another retailer, which is fine. You can make a lot of money being another retailer, but then you're not Amazon, and that would be a shame.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a shame. I totally understand the motivation for needing to build the ad network. I mean, I remember the very early days. You know, we were the forefathers of that effort inside Amazon when, you know, we would say, you know, all right, we've got this new model where we're, you know, we're marketing goods electronically and we're distributing them, you know, through our fulfillment network to customers. And it's a very different route to market, very different cost structure than traditional retail. And yet in traditional retail, and by the way, we were subject to the same bracket pricing and everything else that other retailers were, right? And we're also asking for these like really small truckloads and stuff to go, or partial truckloads to, you know, optimize the inventory flow. So we were actually putting some more cost into the system, as we mentioned earlier. But we needed access to those funds that other retailers were getting. If we didn't have access to those funds, we couldn't be nearly competitive with other retailers, or we would just be losing our shares. So we had to go get that money, and the way to get some of that money is to say we can help you market to our customers that are on the site. So we will create advertising opportunities, which, by the way, you do on Morning Newsbeat, right?
Totally.
Right.
But the day that listen, and I'm
right. The day that your editorial is shaped by the ads around it, you will have lost it.
Oh, and I've lost potential advertisers because I've said no. The readers have to come first, and if you don't want the readers to come first, then we're not in sync.
Totally get it, and that's where Amazon finds itself is it's built this very sophisticated, very effective, relatively effective ad network,
right?
Where, you know, and brands are challenging it, right? Are they getting the best return on their ad spend on Amazon? And that was always an emphatic yes. And then it's a little bit more questioned today, especially as advertisers have more options and as Amazon becomes crowded. So there's a little bit of challenge to that now, but it's a necessary revenue stream for Amazon to make ends work. They now though are faced with, how do we still get enough of that revenue stream to offset our cost structure, to help us offer lower prices, while also serving a better customer experience?
Well, listen,
it's a challenge,
right? Yeah, and I mean, and by the way, because we always try and not just analyze Amazon, but think about the you know, the broader picture, this is a situation that every retailer that's investing in a retail media network
100%.
is going to absolutely face. I don't care whether
Yeah.
Kroger, Albertsons, Hy-Vee, whoever. The minute you let the retail media network run you, as opposed to you running the retail media network, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you and I have, I think, probably from the very first innovation conversation we did all those years ago, the notion was the biggest thing you can learn from Amazon is customer centricity. You said that about Wegmans and Amazon, the two big retailers where you've worked. And that's, I think that is especially now, it's what Amazon has to think about. Well, it's every retailer and wholesaler for that matter that's watching us has to think to themselves, how do we avoid this minefield? Because if it can blow up on Amazon, it can blow up on anybody.
Absolutely. And Amazon does find itself standing in the middle of the minefield now.
Oh.
You know, and you think we're talking only about the retail side of the business, but then you start talking about the Prime Video side of the business, and you know, just all the service elements and things they're doing in those service elements to optimize the business, the underlying business of that offering. It's a challenging time. All while still innovating. You know, and bring more generative AI into your offering, and you know, it's an interesting time.
Don't even get me started on now that if for me to have the Prime Video service that I've had since the beginning without ads, I'm now going to pay $36 a year more.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just the optics of it. I get it, but the optics of it are terrible. And it's all about the ads. It's no longer about me as in this case, the viewer. It's about the ads. And
we talked about it. I think there were more customer centric ways to approach that.
Agreed.
And I do think if you are taking advantage of the full bundle of Prime, right? So everything you can get in Prime, between music, and video, and the free shipping, you know, or the fastest free shipping, and all that, I have to think that you would be willing to probably pay more than, what is it, $11 a month, right?
Yeah.
Or $12 a month or whatever. $11.50.
No, it was $3.99 for the free ad, for the free video.
Right, for the free ad. But I'm saying, you know, the bundle of everything together is $139 a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Raise that. I mean, you're going to get a lot of grief for raising that, but then allow customers to strip out a couple things they don't need.
Yeah.
You get it down to $99 or $139.
Yeah.
You know, then at least this way you're letting the customer opt into what's valuable to them. And I think that's a far different message to customers. I'm sure they thought through that. I'm sure there's a reason they went the route that they did, or they're going the route they are, but I don't know. It seems like that could have been more completely thought through.
Even big companies make mistakes, as we know with Delta, but that's a different conversation. We'll have that another time. Hey, listen, I feel you know, between Albertsons and Kroger and Amazon, and we're going to be talking, I suspect, more about the FTC than we want to. But this is an interesting conversation, because one of the things about innovation is to not be distracted by the shiny object, which can just lure you in and get you into big trouble.
100%.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hit the road because I want to get home.
Enjoy the drive. It looks beautiful.
It is. I have to tell you, I was in Toronto for 4 days. Every day was in the mid 70s. It's October. I'm driving on the highway. Top is down on the Mustang. It is just fabulous out. So it's
awesome.
It is a wonderful time to be here. So anyway, take care. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.